Okay, we want to talk about some of the new features of the 505 Touch and the touchscreen control console, along with the servo position lifter bar. The servo position lifter bar allows the 505 to dial into the exact door width by just simply entering in a value. With this feature, probably once a day or any time that there's a overall power loss, like if you lose power at the main disconnect, it's a good idea to recalibrate the lifter bar. So I want to talk about that momentarily. If you look at the console, first of all, let's just talk a little bit about the layout. You'll notice up in this part of the screen we have the machine status, which is exactly what it says it is. And then we have the instruction. Whenever you are, or the machine is in a position to go on to the next step, this will tell you what you need to do in order to take that next step. So for instance, it says press the sequence to clamp, because we're currently in the unclamped position. So the controls are set up very simply with the e-stop, with the sequence button, and then the touch screen with the function key options to perform all the functions of the 505. So it's very simple. But let's talk about calibrating the lifter bar. So the first thing we do in this case is we would go to...
Please call Zach at extension 411. Smart Part first. Please call 411.
We would go to the Adjust Lifter tab, which takes us to this screen. And in this screen we have the option to jog, we have the option to calibrate, or to return. In this case we want to calibrate, so we hit the F4 function key. And again, we have the ability to jog, we have the ability to set our jog speed, and this is the screen where we'd enter in the calibration value. So I have the option, I can jog the lifter bar up and down if I'd like, but that's not necessary. The most important thing is that we have to enter the calibration dimension before we exit this screen once we get here. Over on this side of the lifter bar we have a pointer and a scale, and this scale is calibrated to the exact width of the door. So whenever we enter the calibrate screen, wherever this is sitting, we can take the value read directly off this pointer. In this particular case, we're sitting at 35 and 9/16. So in this particular case, we already have 35 and 9/16 entered into our calibrate dimension, but we'll demonstrate how this looks. You just simply touch that. You would clear your data that's currently in the screen and type in 35563. There's a 3 decimal place implied on the numbers, so you have to enter in the last 3 digits. There's no decimal key to enter. So we enter in the 35563 to give us our 35 and 9/16, and then simply enter that value and it will be displayed right here. And all we have to do at this point is return. And once we've returned, the lifter bar is now calibrated. So now the question is, how do you set a dimension on this? Well, we have a door width listed right here of 2 foot 11 and 9/16, which is the same dimension as our calibrate dimension. But let's say we want to do something different, like let's go 3 foot and 9/16. The first thing I do is I hit my feet, clear, 3, enter, and this one I'd hit clear, and then just 563 for the 9/16 and enter. So I got 3 foot and 9/16, which you'd probably never do, but just for the sake of argument, that's 1 inch wider than the door we had in there before. Then, as the instruction says, press sequence to adjust the door to size. And all you have to simply do is hit the sequence button, and it will go up exactly 1 inch. If we want to go to a different size, we can adjust this. Let's go to let's say 3 foot 5 and 15/16. So 9, 3, 8. Enter. Size. So the bar will adjust to exactly the width of the door that you're about to do. We're going to bring it down to our 2 foot 11 and 9/16 because that's the size of door that we want to run through here. And hit size. Now, the other features on this touchscreen as we actually start processing the door, we'll talk about how to go about this sequentially. And as you'll see, the touchscreen will kind of lead you through the normal steps that are necessary to process a door. But for starters, we'll go to bevel a door. We've already adjusted the lifter bar to the right height. So now we can load a door on the in-feed end. That's traumatizing. As you load the door in and it rolls underneath the roller, we want to make sure that we lift our carriage up so that the pointer is on 0. And essentially what that will do is, regardless of the width of the door that you install, it'll cut off exactly the right amount to provide you with a door that is the finished width that we desire, that we entered in on the sizer bar. So you don't think of this as, I want to take 5/16 off, or I want to take 1/4 off. You think of it in terms of the finished door width. You enter that first, you bring your door in, you zero it out on the scale, and now you're ready to operate. So in this case, we're going to bevel this door. So we're going to hit the bevel start, and that'll start the in-feed wheels to roll, as well as the cutter wheel and the edge breakers that ease the edge of the beveled end. So now we've just put a 3-degree bevel on the edge of the door and sized it to the size that we entered in on the touchscreen. Now we will position the door to put a lock bore on it. I also want to note that we understand that we have a lock bore on the wrong side of the door. This is a piece of scrap. So, as Bill is demonstrating, he's hitting the sequence button to clamp, and you notice that now the screen changes and it shows that you have the option to do lock bore, the latch drill, and the faceplate mortise. And the machine status is machine enabled, and it says press the sequence button to begin the boring. At this point, if any one of these, if they're turned on or off, it will skip that function and do whatever's next in this particular cycle. So that's how you determine what you're going to do to the edge prep of this door. So now we can simply hit sequence. and that just bored the door. Now what we just did there is we've shot our stop pin through the lock bore. We've shot the pin through the lock bore and pushed the lock bore against the side of the pin and clamped it. And now you notice that the screen changes to only faceplate. So that took care of the boring, the last drill, and the faceplate mortise. And now Bill's going to demonstrate the hinge mortising. The hinge mortising can be done anytime the door is clamped. So during the boring process, drilling process, it can be done. And actually that's the time it should be done, because that's when you're in position, in the proper position of the door. So in this case, we can clamp the door, and now the hinge carriage can be brought open over to the hinge locator position. And as he goes to each position, Bill only hits one button on the carriage to sequence the carriage through each step, through the dropping, through the clamping, and then the unclamping and lifting up. That's all done by just sequencing the single button alongside the router. The router carriage has its own stops there to adjust the width of the mortise, the depth of mortise. The hinge blocks are located by a scale along this edge, so that you can position each mortise where you'd like them. And we have a setup for the left hand and for the right hand. And I might also say that the lock bore carriage is set for the top of door to center of lock bore before you start boring the door, obviously. Once you have this set, the scales for the hinge position are connected to this lock bore saddle, as we call it, so that they always stay calibrated to wherever your lock bore position is. Something else that's on here is the jam. As it sits here, we have a stop to locate the top of jam, and it's adjusted to provide the reveal that's necessary between the header and the top of the door. The other thing that we provide is we've got a hand-operated pre-drill and a hand-operated screwdriver, so that the hinges can be applied before the door is unclamped, and then they can be, the door with the jam can be unloaded off the end after it's all complete. And that highlights the features of the Ruvo 505 Touch.